Sup YouTube, Official Gaming Network, and welcome to episode 39 of our Mario game in Java tutorial. Last episode we implemented a background image into our game. This episode we're going to be implementing the fire flower into our game. Now before we get into this episode, a few things to clear up. If you see any code while I'm making the fire flower that you don't realize, don't worry, I'll be covering it later in this episode. And why this happens is because I recorded this episode in two segments. The first segment, I was implementing the fire flower. The other one, I was just doing something else, which I'll get to in a second. But the segment, which I recorded, in which I was implementing the fire flower, the audio for that segment didn't record for whatever reason. I probably forgot to click record audio or something. But, yeah. And I realized is, after I had already, recorded me recording the actual tutorial, typing all the code. So yeah, I try to delete most of the code as possible that was that had to do with creating the fire flower. But yeah, sorry if I leave a few things in. And the second segment of this episode, which I recorded, is pretty much implementing a better damaging system. So if you see a method in the player class that's called take damage, don't worry, that'll be implemented after we implement the fire flower. So yeah, now that's out of the way. If we go into our sprite sheet class, you can see that I've created a few new sprites. You can see there's a fire flower here, there's a fireball, and then there's a player for when a sprite for when our player is in its fire mode, which is literally just me recoloring the player red. So yeah, we have to do our usual, just create new sprites, nothing new, probably guys. Oh, sorry. You guys have probably already done this many times before, so public static sprite fireball. And I'm actually going to cut some of this because I don't really need to add it in. It's not really necessary. Now for our fire player array, because it's pretty much the same amount of sprites as our regular player thing. Why am I opening up GIMP? Because it's the same amount of sprites as our regular player sprite array, we just put 8 in our fire player sprite array, and we need to create a for loop like we usually do. So we can really just copy this player for loop and change player to fire player, and change I plus 1 I think to I plus 8. Now what we need to do is that we need to go into our power up block class, and we are typing code that's making a mushroom pop up. So even if we, in our sprite power up, if we put a fire flower sprite, then it's pretty much still going to pop up a mushroom. Next to handler.addEntity new mushroom, we're going to check if our power up sprite here is actually a mushroom. If not, then pop up a fire flower. So if power up equals game dot mushroom, or power up is equal to game dot life mushroom, then handler.addEntity new mushroom. Then we type else if power up is equal to game dot fireball. Then yeah, we can just type handler.addEntity new fireball. And the code won't work yet because we haven't created a fireball class, but it should work once we create a fireball class. Actually, flower, not fireball. What is wrong with me? Yeah, and by the way, if you haven't added an ID, a fireball ID in your ID enum, then do so right now. But yeah, anyway, we're going to create our fire flower class. I keep getting the two mixed up. What is wrong with me? So yeah, go to your power up package in your entity package and create a new class, and we're going to call it flower. And we don't really need to do much in here. All we need to do is pretty much make it render the fire flower sprite, and that's pretty much all we need to do for this class. We don't need to do anything fancy in the tick method or things like that. So yeah, we have to do the usual g dot draw image game dot flower. Oh my god, what is wrong with Eclipse? Game dot flower dot get buffered image get x. Alright, and that's pretty much all we need to do for the flower class. As I said before, we're not really doing much in this class. But yeah, now we need to go to our player class. Where's our player class? Yeah, in mob. and we need to go to our entity for loop in our player's tick method, and at the end, after else if e.getId is equal to id.star, we need to type else if e.getId is equal to id.flower, and if so, we want to set state equal to player state dot fire, and because we haven't created a player state called fire yet, go to our player state and create a state called fire. Now that I think about it, when we were implementing our power star, I actually should have added an invincible player state, but I obviously forgot to, which you can do that and change the code up a bit if you want to, but I'm leaving the code as it is because I don't want to cause any bugs by trying to add in another code or redo the code. So yeah, I'm going to set state equal to player state dot fire. And of course, when we collect our fire flower, we want our fire flower to get removed, so type e.die, which will pretty much destroy our fire flower. Now we want to go to our player's render method, and we want to make it so when our state is equal to player state dot fire, we actually render our fire player sprites instead of the sprites for our normal player. So in your render method, add an if statement. If state is equal to player state dot fire, and if so, then we want to copy this code, and we just want to change game.player to game.fireplayer. And then after the if statement, we want to type else, which will obviously occur when our state isn't equal to player state.fire, and we just want to put our normal game.player sprite array in there. So one last thing, we have to go to our handler class, wherever that is, and we want to add tile power up block. We want to change the sprite from game.mushroom to game.flower. I keep typing fireball, like I keep getting the two mixed up. What is wrong with me? Alright, so now let's run our game and test this out. Where's the error? Oh yeah, we need to import flower. Oh yeah, one more thing I have to do is that when we go to our if e.getId is equal to id.flower if statement, we need to make an if statement where we're checking if our getBounds intersects our flower's getBounds method or our entity's getBounds method. So e.getBounds, and just copy all the code into that. Alright, so if we run our game, everything should work. Alright, you can see our flower comes out, and if we get it, then you can see we have created our fire thing. What? There seems to be some sort of graphical glitch. Look at that. When I'm walking, it's just... Alright, I think I know why. I think it's because I need to adjust the numbers a little bit. So, maybe if I type I plus 9 instead of I plus 8 when we're initializing our fire player, maybe that will fix the bug. It's probably because our fire player sprite array is offsetted, and that's probably why it's happening. So yeah, there we go. Now it works perfectly fine. So yeah, now to implement the actual fireballs. And oh yeah, one more thing. In Mario games, when we are Fire Mario, then our player is actually in its big state. But when we're getting the fire flower in our game, then our player is still in its small state, where when we get a fire flower, it should be in its big state, well, in its big size. So yeah, to fix that, we want to go to our e.getId is equal to id.mushroom if statement in your player's entity for loop, and you want to copy all this code here. Now this bit of code pretty much makes our player big, so you want to copy that, and you want to go back to our v.getId is equal to id.flower if statement. Now after the if getBounds.intersects e.getBounds if statement, we want to create another if statement. It's going to be checking if our state is equal to player state dot small, and if our player is small, we want to paste the code in here, which will make our player big. So yeah, let's give that a quick little test. Yeah, there you go. As you can see, when we got our fire flower, why do I keep saying created? When we got our fire flower, our player turned into its big size. And by the way, if you didn't realize, I actually made our player jump a little bit higher than it usually did in previous episodes. And this is so I could get the actual fire flower when we popped it up out of the power up box. So yeah, now onto creating the fire flower. Fireball. I cannot talk today at all. So yeah, go to your entity package and create a new class, and we want to call it Fireball. And we want to make it extend entity like usual. Oh, and by the way, I want to talk to you guys about something while I just get rid of this and obviously draw our fireball sprite. I'm actually working on a little program. It's more of a, not really a game, it's more kind of like a simulation program. It's going to be pretty much a genetic algorithm that learns how to build levels. And what it's going to be like is that there's going to be a robot that isn't controlled by the player and it moves on its own. And pretty much the genetic algorithm has to build a level for that robot that will help it reach the endpoint. So I'm working on that right now. I hope to get it done by the end of the school holidays, and by that I mean school holidays in Australia, which is like end of January. But yeah, I would like to show you guys the program once it's done, and I would like to also release the source code as well. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool concept. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. Alright, so yeah, now that I've just announced that and we've drawn our fireball sprite, I don't really need to explain things there. You guys probably know what's going on. So now we need to create two for loops. One will be for our handler's tile linked list, tile.size I++, tile t is equal to handler.tile.getI, and we need to do the same but for our handler's entity linked list. So just copy that and change tile to entity. And also in our fireball constructor, we need to add in one more parameter, and it's pretty much going to be an integer called facing. So now in our constructor, let's make a switch, which will take in our facing integer. And if our facing is equal to 0, then we want to set our vel x equal to -8, then break. Then case 1, which will be if we're facing right, or the fireball wants to go right, then we'll set our vel x equal to +8, and then break that as well. Now we want to go to our tile for loop, and we want to check if getBoundsLeft dot intersects t dot getBounds, or actually I think we need to do this here, or getBounds right dot intersects t dot getBounds. And if that's true, then we want to pretty much kill our fireballs, because when our fireball hits a wall, then yeah, we'll automatically kill it. Oh, and by the way, we need to surround this in an if statement where we're checking if t is equal to solid, or if our tile is solid, in other words, because we don't want our fireball to get killed when it's touching a tile that's not solid. So in this if statement, we're actually going to make another if statement where we're checking if our getBounds bottom dot intersects t dot getBounds. Now, if you realize in Mario games when a fireball is being shot, then it's actually bouncing on the ground, and that's what we're going to do in here. So if getBounds bottom intersects t dot getBounds, then we pretty much want to make our fireball bounce. So we're going to set jumping equal to true, falling equal to false, and gravity equal to about 4.0. Then after our getBounds bottom if statement, we want to type else if falling is equal to false and jumping is equal to false. Then if it's not falling and it's not jumping and it's just staying in the air doing nothing, then we want to automatically make our fireball fall. So set falling equal to true, and gravity equal to about 1.0. Now we pretty much just want to go to our player class and go to your if falling and if jumping if statements and just copy those and paste them into the fireball class because I'm lazy and yeah, I pretty much can't be bothered typing the jumping and falling gravity thing again. Alright, and by the way, remove this and going down pipe is equal to false because we're in our fireball class, not our player class, and we don't really need them for this class. Alright, so now we're going to go into our entity for loop, and this is where if our fireball is touching an enemy, then it's going to kill it. So if e.getID is equal to id.goomba, or e.getID is equal to id dot think plant, no, not particle, plant. So yeah, we're pretty much just listing the IDs of all our enemies, so I think it's id.cooper. Then if getBounds dot intersects e.getBounds, so if our fireball is touching any of our enemies, then we want our enemy to die, and we also want our fireball to die as well, so just type die in e.die. So yeah, at the top of our tick method, we obviously want to type x plus equals vel x and y plus equals vel y, so our fireball actually moves. And now we're going to go into our key input class. Right, so right here. And we want to make another case where we're checking if key event is equal to key event dot vk space. So yeah, if we're going to make it so if we press our space bar, then a fireball will be shot. Now we want our fireball to be facing the same way our player is facing. So to do that, we're going to actually make a switch, which will take in en.facing, and if you don't remember, en is pretty much our player. So we're going to make a switch for our player's facing integer. And if case is equal to 0, or our player is facing left, then we want to type game.handler.addEntity, which will be your new fireball. And the X position will obviously be to the left of our player, so we'll type en.getX minus 24. And then let's make the y coordinate en.getY plus 12. So it'll kind of make our fireball more centered when we shoot it. And when I say centered, I mean more centered correspondent to our player. And the width and height of our fireball will be 24 and 24. Our ID is equal to id.fireball. Our handler will obviously be game.handler. And our facing will be our same facing as our player. So just type en.facing. And then obviously we want to break. And case 1, we're pretty much going to do the exact same thing. So just copy and paste it. But we want to change the x coordinate to en.getx plus en.getWidth. So it will be to the right of our player. So yeah, if we run our game, hopefully everything should work. Alright, let's get our flower. And if we shoot, then yeah, as you can see, our fireball is bouncing normally. And as you can see, it killed that Koopa when it touched it. And yeah, our fireballs are just bouncing away. And if they hit a wall, obviously they'll get killed. And if we shoot them from far, then yeah, they keep bouncing down and they just, you know, go about their days pretty normally. Now I'm actually going to make my fireballs bounce or fall down a little quicker. So in my fireball class, I'm just going to change gravity plus equals 0.4. And I'm just pretty much going to play around with numbers until I find something that I'm happy with. And maybe you guys can follow it as well. Oh yeah, I just realized something. Although my player is small, although our player isn't Fire Mario, it can still shoot fireballs no matter what. And don't worry, I'm just going to play around with numbers like I said before until I find something I liked, because I want my fireballs to bounce down a bit quicker. Yeah, so after that I'll fix the bug. Alright, so I'm happy with this. I'm pretty much changing in our jumping and falling statements. Gravity plus equals 0.31 and minus equals 0.31. So you can do the same if you want to, but or you can just change it to suit your own likings. But yeah, now we're going to fix that bug because you can see our player can shoot fireballs, although it's not Fire Mario. So yeah, this is a pretty simple fix. All we need to do is go to our key input class, and in our case key event.vk space, we're going to check if en.state is equal to player state.fire. And if that's true, then we're going to put our en.facing switch inside that. And one more thing I want to fix is that this. Just wait. So if we grab our fire flower and I keep holding down space, you can see that it's automatically shooting fireballs no matter what. So if I hold down space, then it's gonna keep shooting fireballs. And I don't like it like that. You can keep it like that if you want to, but I want it so that you have to let go of space before you shoot another fireball. So let's fix that. In our key input class, we're going to create a private boolean. It's going to be called fire. And in our en.facing switch, after we create our fireball, we're going to set fire equal to true. Fire equal to true. And now go to your key released method. We're going to make a case where we're checking if key event is equal to key event.vk space. And if that's true, we want to set fire equal to false and then break. And then in your if en.state is equal to player state.fire if statement, in your key pressed method, we want to type and fire is equal to false. So just type and exclamation fire. So yeah, hopefully that should work. Let's try it out. Alright, so now let's try hold our spacebar down. Yeah, as you can see, I'm holding my spacebar down and it's not infinitely shooting fireballs. I have to actually let go of space to shoot fireballs. And yeah, that's pretty much our fireball thing done. Now I'm going to cut to the second segment of this episode, which I recorded earlier than this one, which I explained it at the start of this video. And I don't think I explained what's going to happen in the second segment of this episode. We're pretty much going to be adding a better damaging system. So what happens is that if we take damage by a creeper, it actually doesn't give us enough time to get away from the creeper until we get damaged again. So we pretty much get killed straight away. So yeah, we're going to be adding something where it gives us time to get away from the enemies before we can get damaged again. So yeah. Alright, so now we're going to fix the next problem, which is implementing, well, not really fixing it, it's adding something, which is implementing a better damaging system. So when we get damaged, it actually gives us time to restore and run away. And yeah, it'll just be a better damaging system in general. And by the way, I just got rid of all the other classes at the top here because they were getting kind of annoying. Hey, do you realize, I'm not sure if I mentioned this last episode, but whenever I move my mouse, it becomes big. I don't know why it does that. Probably something to do with the settings. But anyway, yeah. First of all, we're going to scroll down to the bottom of our player class. And after the tick method, we're going, which will be the second last bracket, we're going to make a public void. And we're going to call it take damage. This is pretty obvious by now. We're going to call this method whenever we take damage. So yeah, first, what we need to do is check the player's player state. So we're going to make an if statement where we're checking if the player state of the player is equal to player state dot small. And if we get damaged and we're small Mario, then obviously we're going to die, and that's it. And so, yeah, then type else if state is equal to player state dot big. Alright, and in this else if statement, then we're going to go to, where we usually take damage. And where is it? It should be when we collide with our green bar. That's when it should get cold. Oh yeah, here it is. So yeah, try to find these 4 lines of code. It should be in your entity for loop, if where it's checking if eat.getId is a good id.goomba or some type of enemy. So yeah, just copy this, and we want to paste it into here. But the thing is, when I was testing this, I had problems with the size. Like the player, when it took damage, it shrunk down too small. So to fix this, all I'm gonna do is width minus equals width divided by 4, and then we can go height minus equals height divided by 4. But yeah, anyway, let's get to our fire. So else if state is equal to player state dot fire, then we don't really need to change the size or anything. All we really need to do is just set the player state to player state dot big, because when we take damage from Fire Mario, we turn back into regular Big Mario. Yeah, I just realized we have to do this as well for player state dot big. So in your player state dot big if statement, just obviously type state is equal to player state dot small. And then after all of these if statements, just to be safe, we're just going to type return. So if you don't, I'm not sure if I've used this before, but return pretty much means get out of this method. So if Java is scanning the code and it comes up with return, then it means whatever method it's in, get out of it, so it doesn't execute any of the code below. So yeah, this is just to be safe, because if we don't type return and we put these else if things, like let's say in this order, in the completely wrong order, then you're gonna get problems. So yeah, this is just to be safe. So yeah, now we need to replace every time we get hit with take damage. So we'll just copy this take damage thing. We're gonna scroll up and find where we get hit. So the first one is else if e dot Cooper state is equal to Cooper state dot spinning. It says else if our players get bounds method intersects e dot get bounds, then die, which we don't really want. We want to take damage. So yeah, this should be in the if statement, where it's checking if the ID is equal to Cooper in your entity for loop. And yeah. And now we'll just keep scrolling up, and oh yeah, there's another one here in e.cooperstate is equal to cooperstate.walking. Alright, and there should be one in our in this else if statement here, where it's checking if the ID is equal to Goomba, Tower Boss, or Plant. There should be one right about here. Yeah, here we go. Alright, and also we need to copy our game.damage.play line of code, where we're pretty much playing the sound that plays when we take damage. And yeah, we're pretty much just going to paste it into our big if statement and our fire if statement. And the reason why we don't put it in this small if statement is because if we die, then we don't want it. Then we don't want to play a damage sound, we want it to play a death sound, indicating that you died. One more thing we have to do is that we need to make it so our player will be invincible for about 1.5 or 2 seconds after he gets hit, so it has a chance to get away. So yeah, to do that, just create a private int in your player class. It is going to be called restore time. And we're also going to make a private boolean, and I'm going to call it restoring. So in your player's tick method, just under if invincible, type if restoring, then the restore time ++. So every tick we're adding 1 to restore time. So, and now we're going to check if our restore time is equal to 90, which is, and because our game runs at 60 ticks per second, 1.5 seconds will be about 90 ticks on average. So we're going to check if restore time is greater than or equal to 90, which is about 1.5 seconds in real time. Then we're going to set restoring equal to false because we don't want our player to restore after the 1.5 seconds has passed. And we're going to set restoring time equal to 0, so when we set restoring equal to true again, the timer will be reset, and yeah, it'll work pretty much. So yeah, now go to your take damage method, and in your playState.big if statements and playState.fire if statements, we're actually going to type restoring is equal to true, and then type restore time is equal to 0, and do that for the big if statements. And yeah, everything should work. So we'll run our game now. It wouldn't let me jump. Alright, so yeah, I pressed the W key and it didn't let me jump for some reason. Alright, so now let's get our fire flower. Let's run into the creeper. Alright, that didn't work. Oh yeah, the reason why it didn't work is because even if our restoring boolean is equal to true, it's still not going to stop our player from taking damage. So to fix that, at the top of our public void take damage, we're going to type if restoring return. So if our player is restoring, then get out of this method so our player won't take damage. Alright, now it should work. So yeah, let's run our game. Alright, let's get our flower. Alright, now let's take damage. As you can see, unlike before, when I ran into the creeper, I didn't automatically just die. And as you saw before, I walked through the creeper, which tells us that our restoring thing has worked. So now let's run to again. Okay. I really don't know why that worked. That's kind of weird. Just wait a sec. Alright, so I figured out how to fix the bug. So in your else if e.getIDs equal to id.goomba or towerboss or plant if statement, then you would see an else if statement where it's checking if our player's getBounds intersects e.getBounds, and yeah, we have to remove this else if state is equal to playState.small statement. So yeah, it's kind of weird. So yeah, next step is to scroll down to our take damage void, and in our state is equal to playState.big if statement, when we type x plus equals width, we have to type x plus equals width divided by 4. Because if we type x plus equals width and height plus equals a height on its own without dividing it by 4, then our player will go too far into the ground and then it'll get teleported off to the right of our map. So yeah, by dividing it by 4, then yeah, everything should work. So let's run it one more time. Alright, so you can see as we took damage as Big Mario, we became Small Mario. Now, if we run to our Koopa, then yeah, we just die as normal. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this extra long episode. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Leave some feedback in the comments below. And yeah, stay tuned for more videos. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.